Welcome back to BrewFix, where coffee meets craftsmanship. And today we're tackling something uncomfortable but fascinating. The psychological reason you might actually like bad espresso. Because taste is not purely chemical. It is deeply influenced by expectation, familiarity, emotion, and cognitive bias. Espresso quality is determined by extraction balance, mineral interaction, temperature stability, and particle distribution. Yet your brain does not evaluate those variables in isolation. It interprets them through memory and learned preference. If you grew up drinking dark, bitter, over-extracted coffee, your sensory system may associate bitterness with strength, authenticity, or real coffee. Meaning when you taste a technically balanced, sweeter espresso, it might initially feel weak or unfamiliar. This phenomenon is rooted in exposure bias, where repeated experiences shape preference, and the brain begins to equate familiarity with quality. There's also the intensity bias, where stronger sensory stimulation, more bitterness, more roast, more punch, feels more impressive even if it is less refined, much like louder music can feel better even when it's distorted. Under-extracted sour espresso can also be misinterpreted as bright or specialty if expectation frames it positively, demonstrating how context shapes perception. Studies in sensory psychology show that labeling, price, and perceived expertise influence flavor evaluation significantly, meaning if you believe a shot is high quality, you are more likely to experience it as such. Cognitive dissonance plays a role as well. If you invest in expensive equipment or wait in line at a prestigious cafe, your brain resists labeling the result as disappointing, instead subtly adjusting perception to match expectation. There is also comfort bias, where flavors that align with your historical baseline feel more satisfying even if technically flawed, because the brain prefers predictability over novelty. Technically balanced espresso contains layered acidity, integrated sweetness, and restrained bitterness, but those subtleties require attention and recalibration to appreciate, whereas poorly extracted shots often hit one dominant note that is easier to process. Think of it like film. Blockbuster explosions are instantly engaging, but nuanced storytelling requires patience and developed taste. Espresso works similarly, where imbalance can feel bold and exciting while balance feels quiet and controlled. This does not mean your preferences are wrong, but it does mean preference is not the same as quality. Professional tasting separates liking from evaluating, focusing on structure, clarity, aftertaste length, and temperature evolution rather than immediate emotional response. The moment you begin tasting analytically, you realize some shots you once loved collapse as they cool, revealing harsh phenolics or hollow under extraction that were initially masked by heat and intensity. Understanding this psychological layer changes how you approach dialing an espresso, because instead of chasing what feels immediately impressive, you start calibrating toward balance, asking whether sweetness persists, whether acidity integrates rather than spikes, whether bitterness dries the palate or supports structure. At BrewFix, we focus on system thinking not just in machines, but in perception, because mastering espresso requires retraining the palate as much as stabilizing pressure and temperature. And once you recognize how expectation, familiarity, and intensity bias influence your judgment, you gain control over your sensory calibration, allowing you to appreciate true balance rather than simply responding to loud flavors, keeping your standards elevated, your evaluations honest, and your mornings caffeinated with awareness rather than illusion.